Are there what, 5 more Fridays?
I believe that's what Dalton said.
5 more Fridays? I don't know, I'll have to look, something like that. All right, so I'm gonna start by returning some, wait, no, I have leftover stuff to return, so maybe you won't get anything, because I didn't collect anything last class, I believe. Yeah. If there's something that's not yours. Okay. Some of you probably already have it out, but if you don't, let's take out the figure base homework that we have for today. And I am collecting this one today. Because figure base is muy importante. Very important.
Wow, I got music theory and Spanish.
See.
Not a jack of all trades.
All right, so you had to add accidentals in section 1 according to the figures. You had to identify triad types and build them according to the figures in section 2. And section 3 was all about 7th chords according to the figure base. All right, let me see who has any questions. Yes?
Can we go to the second one on 2?
Section 2, the second one, yes.
The second one that we had to do.
I'm sorry?
The second one that we had to do.
Okay, so is it down to 6 sharp for the
Yeah.
figures? Yeah. Okay, good. Let's see, we have a key signature of 2 flats in that measure. We have, looks like an A in the base, and we have a 6 sharp for the figure. We're supposed to build the following, or build this triad according to the figures, and then identify its type and its base position. Okay, so last class I talked about how when you have an accidental in a figure that's not associated or connected to a number, like this sharp right here, it refers to the third above the base. The third above the base. So I'm going to just insert that because that is implied. So plugging these notes in at these distances or these intervals above the base, I have a third above is going to give me a C. This sign tells me to sharp C. And then a 6th above the base looks like an F. Oops. So that is at least my triad, the way it should look in the stem. It looks like it's F, A, C sharp. F, A, C sharp, what type of triad is that? Major, minor, augmented, or diminished?
Augmented.
That's right, it's augmented. I'm going to put my answer up here because I don't have room below. So it's augmented. And what inversion is this triad in?
First inversion.
That's right, first inversion. So I might write something like that in the base position. So augmented triad, first inversion, and the triad on the staff should be these notes here. C sharp above the A and then F above that. So if you are all getting a similar or the same answer as me, then that means you're reading the language, you're understanding the figure-based notation the correct way. It's a communication tool, right? It tells you what to put on the staff, it tells you what to play, these kinds of things. All right, are there other questions? Yes.
The last one in 2.
Okay, the last one in section 2. Still in the base clef, of course. We've got 1 sharp in the key signature for that measure, a B in the base, and we have the figure +6/4. 6/4 is the full symbol for a triad. You don't have to add or confer any more numbers. So if I put these, the notes at these intervals above the base, a 4th above the B is an E, and a 6th above the base is a G, well, what does the plus tell me to do to the G? Raise it a half step. Normally with the key signature doesn't affect this, so this is just plain G natural. But the plus tells me to raise it a half step, so that's going to make it G sharp. Now if I look at these notes and rearrange them in my mind so that they're in stacked thirds or root position, I can tell that E is the root. It's an E, G sharp, B triad. What type of triad is E, G sharp, B? Major, minor, augmented, or minor? Major, that's right. And if E is the root, G sharp is the 3rd, and B is the 5th of the chord, what inversion is a triad in when the 5th is the lowest tone?
Second.
That's right, 2nd inversion. So I would say that this is a major triad now in 2nd inversion.
Okay, one more question.
Okay.
For the part 3,
Uh-huh.
7th one and the second to the last, the /4 and a 2.
Okay. I think I see that one. So we have 2 sharps in the key signature. And we have an E in the base, it looks like, with /4, whoops, and then a 2 underneath that. Now last class I had talked about, this is an abbreviated figure, it's not the full symbol. 4/2 really implies and means, what's the full symbol? Yes?
6/4/2.
That's right, 6/4/2. So I have to assume that there is a 6 there in that figure. I'm going to place 3 notes, 1, 2, 3 notes above the bass, so we're going to get a total of 4 different pitches, which means this should be a 7th chord, and it will be. A 2nd above the bass gives me F, and there's nothing next to this 2, so I'm going to let the key signature call the F what it's supposed to be, and that's F sharp. A 4th above the bass, E, is A, but the slash tells me to do what to that note?
Raise it a half step.
That's right, raise it a half step, so it's got to be A sharp, because otherwise it's A natural. And a 6th above the bass is a C, and I'm going to let the key signature call that C what it's supposed to be, C sharp. So really, if I'm paying attention here, I have the notes E, F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. And the root of those 4 notes is F sharp. Okay? So what type of 7th chord is F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, E?
Major, minor, 7th.
That's right, it's a major minor 7th chord. And what bass position is it in?
3rd inversion.
That's right, 3rd inversion. But I wouldn't know this and I wouldn't get this correct answer if I didn't interpret these symbols, these figures correctly, and pay attention to the key signature and know that I've got F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, and then E. Very good. Is that good enough? Can I go ahead and collect this one then? Okay, I don't know if I gave a place for your name at the top. I did. Good for me. Yeah, let me come around and pick those up. Thank you. Okay.
Are you willing to leave this out for us?
Okay, I'm willing, yes, I'm willing if you, yes. Well, I'd like you I'd like you, if you could, pay attention to what we talked about today, and then maybe bring it to me later today.
Okay.
That'd be fun. That'd be good. Thank you.
You take this one off, the worksheet.
Oh, yeah, dude, how did you, oh, is it,
This is the one that's online.
okay, I won't comment on that one, sorry about that. Sometimes I make changes over the years and I don't keep track of them. Today I'd like to do just a little more work with figure base to really solidify that concept. And then after that, we're going to go into what we call lead sheet symbols or popular chord symbols. Excuse me, and that's where I'd like to finish today. That's enough material for one class for sure. So on the board, what I have is I have a baseline of, well, how many notes is that? 5, 6, 7, 8 notes. And I have some figures underneath there. And I would like us or you to help me realize or write in the remaining notes of the chords above each of these bass notes according to the figures. And then after that, we're going to identify again the the chord types. And I'll hopefully get to play this on the piano for you when we're done to see what kind of beautiful bean footage this sounds like. I mean, beautiful music it sounds like, hopefully. Okay, so, where did I put my, good, there's good. And you know what, just for the sake of time, I don't think I'm going to deal with any stems or stem directions for these upper notes. I'm just going to put them in as filled in note heads with no stems, just so we can at least see what the notes are for these chords. Now, the first one doesn't have any numbers underneath it. Does that mean I get to skip it?
Yep.
I wish, right? No, we don't get to skip it. What are the implied figures? You don't see anything.
5, 3.
5, 3, that's right. So just plug in a note, a third and a fifth above the bass. And again, I'm not going to worry about stems. It turns out that the E is flat because of the key signature. And the G is just plain G natural. 6 is the figure under this note, and that should hopefully tell you that the full symbol for just a 6 is 6, 3. We need to know that. Yeah. So I'm going to stick that in there because it's implied. And again, putting the notes at these intervals above the bass, I get a D. That's a third above the bass, and a sixth above the bass is a G. Plus 4, 2 is the symbol for the next one. I think we just did an example up on the board that we had 4, 2. You'll need to know this for the test. You'll need to know that that means 6, 4, 2. Putting the notes at these intervals above the bass. Let's see, a second above a B flat is a C. A fourth above a B flat is an E. But now, what accidental do I need to put on that E? Do I need to, why don't you tell me?
A natural,
Yes, and how do you know it's a natural and not a sharp?
because there's a flat key signature.
Yeah, because the key signature normally makes this E flat. All this plus tells me is to just raise it a half step from what the key signature normally calls for. So it's actually going to be a natural in this case. If the composer or musician wanted a sharp on that E, he or she would put a sharp in front of the 4 then. Yeah. All right, and then a sixth above the bass is a G. Good, we're cruising right along. The next one, 6, 3. Third above the bass is C. A sixth above the bass is F. 6/5, what's the full figure? 6/5.
6.3.
That's right, 6/3. So, a third above the base is C. A fifth above the base is, now, what do you make of this? Why is there a flat, you think, in parentheses in front of that 5? You know?
Because it's in the key signature already?
Yeah, it's in the key signature already, that's right. So why even put a flat at all? Why not just leave it as a plain 5?
Is it because, there was a natural one before?
That's right, because there was an E natural in the measure before. And this is telling us to be sure, remember, to make it E flat. So I'm gonna put that there because that's gonna cancel out this natural. All right, and the sixth above the base is an F. And now it looks like I'm gonna run out of room. Let me get this flat out of the way for a second. Put it over here. What kind of F do I need when there's a slash through the 6?
Sharp.
F sharp, that's right. Normally the F is just F natural. Slash means to raise it a half step, so F sharp. Okay. 6/4, well that is the full symbol. So let's plug these notes in here. A fourth above the base is, I'll just still fill it. I know the rhythm is really wonky here, but I'll just fill them in anyways like this. A sixth above the base is an E. E what?
But
E flat. 5 over natural. The natural applies to the third above the base, good. Not necessarily the third of the chord, sometimes that's the case, but you can't assume that always. It's just the third above the base. Okay, so we're gonna do that, put that right here. And a fifth above the base is this. And finally, what does the natural by itself? Okay, we know that that refers to the third above the base. But what's the other number that's implied in that figure? I think I ended with this last time.
5.
Yeah, 5/3 is implied, not 6/3. If 6/3 was implied, a 6 would have to be given to you. So, oh, and by the way, you know, these notes, they don't have to be exactly a third or a fifth above the base. They could be an octave and a third or an octave and a fifth. It's just to tell you the pitch. But they can actually be realized in any octave, in any register. The keyboardist has the leeway or the flexibility to do that. It just gives us the pitch. So I'm actually going to put the third, I'll put it right here. I'll put the fifth above the C right here instead of literally like down there. It's just an extra octave of space down there. Okay. Keep an eye on the time here. Yeah, I better, let's do this. I'll put it up here since I don't have space down below. Give me the type of triad here. Okay, root position. Give me what type of triad do we have? A major, minor, augmented, or diminished? C, E flat, G.
It's mine,
It's-
or.
Yeah, it's minor. See how I'm doing? The next one is GBD. With the B natural, that should be a major triad. What is its base position? First inversion. That's right. First inversion. Oh my goodness. What is the next one? That's a monster. The root looks like it's got to be C. And it's a 7th chord, which is 4 notes. So I read it as C, E, G, B flat. Any idea what kind of 7th chord that is?
Major 7,
Close. It's not quite major major, but it's
major
Major,
minor.
minor.
it's major minor 7th. That's right. And what bass position is that 7th chord in? Third inversion, I would agree. The next one looks like it's just a triad. What type of triad is, if we think of it in root position, FAC. Major triad. And the inversion or base position, first inversion, that's right. The next one is a chord that we don't know yet, so we're going to skip it. That's nice. And then let's just finish off with these. These are all triads now. What do I got here? C, E flat, G. Because the E is flat, so it's a minor triad. And what inversion or base position is this one?
Second.
Second inversion. The next chord, you see it's stacked in thirds. So everything is what it's supposed to be as we look at it. G is the root, B natural is the third, D is the fifth. It's in root position. What type of triad is it? GBD?
Augmented.
No, major. Should just be major, right? GBD. And finally, CEG. This one hopefully is a gimme. Is it major, minor, or major? Major, yeah. The white keys on the piano, CEG, will always forever be a major triad. Those ones. And it's root position. Okay. Boy, that looks like a war hit the board, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to show any prospective high school students wanting to attend, you don't show them that because that might scare them away. Let's listen to what we just created, okay? I think that's the reward for going through all the work. We started in minor, and it sounds kind of like this. Does it sound pretty good?
Yep.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Was that, I don't know there. Was that, I don't know there.
It ends on, I'm in minor the whole way. What it does is it ends on a major tonic chord instead of a minor tonic chord. That's something you'll learn about in a later series. But these are the figures that tell us this is what the composer was intending. All right, I think since I'm out, look at that, I'm actually halfway through the class. Let's shift gears and go to the new topic. In fact, this is the last new topic before we get to a test. And I think I'm going to go ahead and erase this to make some space. All right, so to finish off this unit, we're going to talk about something called popular chord symbols. Get that up here. It doesn't mean that these chord symbols are in, like the in crowd or the popular crowd or anything like that. It just means that, well, these are symbols that are used to designate information about chords, generally used for popular music, but also jazz music and some other styles. By the way, sometimes popular chord symbols are referred to as, what did I have here? Yeah. Sometimes they're referred to as pop chord symbols. Not at this school, but one time when I was teaching in Florida, I said that, and one of the students thought I said popcorn symbols. No, not exactly, although if you have any popcorn with you, I'd be ready to eat some. So, anyways, no, not popcorn symbols, pop chord symbols. Sometimes they're just called pop symbols. These all mean the same thing. And then finally, this term is a lot different, but it means the same thing. And this is what the author uses in your book. Lead sheet symbols. All of those terms up there mean the same thing. They all refer to what I call popular chord symbols. And pop symbols are another way yet to label and analyze the various types of triads and seventh chords we've been learning. As I mentioned, pop symbols are most often used in jazz music and other popular music. Usually music from the 20th and now the current 21st century. This is what these symbols are generally used for. They were a big part of something that is now outdated and obsolete. I don't think they make what's called fake books anymore. But if you've ever heard of something called a fake book, what you would get is you get this popular tune, and you would just get the melody written on a treble staff. And then above the melody, you would have the popular chord symbols that go along with the melody to harmonize it. And that was enough for an amateur to go ahead and, reproduce or play or sing the song, whatever you needed to do. I don't think they make fake books anymore. But, oh, shoot, I forgot. Oh, I could bring that in next class. Maybe I could bring something in. Show and tell for next class or something like that. So, now, let's compare what popular chord symbols are like compared to what figure bass tells us. All right, let me see if I can get an illustration or a diagram on the board here. We know, for instance, that with figured bass symbols, we are given a bass note, such as something like this, and we're given the figure or the numbers, the interval numbers underneath. But generally what this is, these numbers are to tell us what notes are supposed to be placed above the bass note. So in other words, these numbers tell us how to fill out the chord above the bass. And it fills in the gap right here. That's figured bass. We spent some time on that, obviously, last class. However, pop symbols work almost like the opposite. What happens with these is generally you're given not a bass note, but you're given a melody note. So for instance, let's say that that is a note in the melody, in the treble clef. And generally then a popular chord symbol will designate the chord that is supposed to be played underneath the melody note. So that's an example of a pop symbol. And we'll learn those in a second. But generally what this means is that you harmonize the chord with the notes underneath the melody. So for instance, you have something like that. And this is what you're supposed to fill in, even though the pop symbol is written above the melody note. So to summarize, I don't know if my hieroglyphics with pictures, diagrams make a lot of sense. But to summarize, figured bass gives us the bass note, the lowest note of all, with some numbers to tell us where the rest of the chord tones are, and they'll always be above the bass note. On the flip side, pop symbols are generally notated like this, above, but they're notated above a melody note, not a bass note. And they generally give us information about the chord that's supposed to harmonize the melody note below that melody note. So it's almost like just the reverse. So can you see that there's a bit of difference, a bit of distinction between figured bass information and popular chord symbol information? That's the main idea here. Okay, let me know if you have any questions about that. Unfortunately, pop symbols are not standardized. And each type of chord has acquired multiple symbols, unfortunately. One thing I can show you, let me show you this. Give me a minute to turn the TV on. On page 46 in your textbook, the author has the 4 triad types that we have learned and the 5 types of 7th chords. And you can see that for some of these chord types, there are multiple popular symbols used. So for instance, do you see like a diminished triad up here in the 3rd measure of this example? There are 2 different symbols, at least that the author shows, you can use to designate a diminished triad. You can either use the root with a circle, or you can use the letter name of the root with the letters D and M for diminished. You see this half diminished 7th chord here in the 4th measure of the 2nd line. There's multiple possible symbols to designate a half diminished 7th chord. And same thing here, there's different multiple symbols to show or intend the musician to understand a diminished, fully diminished 7th chord as well. And I'll try to explain what some of these symbols, what these letters, what all that means. But I really wish it would be much easier to teach pop symbols in a theory class if there was just one fixed, agreed upon, standardized symbol for every unique kind of chord we learn. For all the 4 types of triads and all 5 types of 7th chords. But it just isn't that way. There's just several choices sometimes for different chords. Okay. Now this is how you understand pop symbols. All popular chord symbols use an uppercase letter, an uppercase or capital letter, to indicate the chord's root. And that's always the case, regardless of the type of the chord. It doesn't matter if the chord is major, minor, or diminished, or if the 7th chord is minor, minor, or half diminished, or whatever. The pop chord symbol always begins with an uppercase letter that tells us the chord's root. Okay? So, let's see if I can give you an example. If I have let's do this. If I have a C minor triad, one of the things you have to write for the popular chord symbol is you always list the root of the chord with a capital letter. And it doesn't matter that this chord is minor or whatnot. It's always a capital letter for the root. So you use a C. Because that's this chord's root. And then what happens is you usually add a little something to the chord's root to specify or indicate what type of chord it is. So in this case, this is a C minor triad. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just put a lowercase m, and that would be the pop symbol for a C minor triad. It means C minor. That's what that means. Okay. So all pop symbols use an uppercase letter to indicate a chord's root, regardless of the type or quality of the chord. Let me give you that. I hope I brought this handout that shows you the pop chord symbols that I'd like us to become a little familiar with. I'm not going to ask you necessarily to memorize all these because there's a lot of them, but at least get accustomed to them. So let's take a look at this for the next few minutes. So I've tried to break or classify or group the pop symbols on this handout according to chord type. In the top table of this handout, you'll see that they are all the 4 types of triads we have learned: major, minor, augmented, and diminished. And there is in the middle column of all these tables is the pop symbol, or a pop symbol, correct one, that I would like you to either become familiar with and start using. So for instance, in the top triad table here, you see how the pop symbol for a major triad is just to give a capital letter for the root of that chord, and that's it. That's all you need. A capital letter which shows the root of the pitch letter name of the root of the chord is all you need to indicate a major triad. You see the minor triad, there are a couple possible choices. You can either write the root, C, with M-I-N, or you can just write the root with a lowercase m. Either one you want to do is fine. Jazz musicians, professional musicians, they know how to read all these types. They know what you mean. A diminished triad can be the root with the letters D-I-M, or just the root of the chord with a circle. Just pick one of those you like to use. And then the augmented pop symbol is just the root of the chord with a plus symbol, which kind of makes sense to me. That one's not too difficult. Okay. Now, in the next table down below, we have the five types of seventh chords, and they're listed over here on the far right. The middle column, once again, is a pop symbol to indicate the particular type of seventh chord shown on the right, or if you want to look on the left, that's fine too. How do you show a pop symbol for a major minor seventh or a dominant seventh? Well, you use a capital letter for the root of the chord with a 7, and that's it. When you see that, that means major minor seventh, always. The root of the chord with a 7. The major seventh chord can be signified by either the root with MAJ7 or the root with just M7, capital M7. Either one is fine. A minor seventh chord, the symbol is the root plus MIN7 or the root just plus lowercase m7. You can see how this works to get familiar. Half diminished seventh chords are the root with the half diminished symbol and a 7, or the root with M7 flat 5. That's, this one takes a little more explaining to do. Maybe I'll be able to have time to do that in the next class. Do any of you like to write symbols that are more complex looking than the easy one? Some books, some music lead sheets and stuff, they'll have things like, F sharp M7 flat 5 rather than the half diminished symbol. Go figure. And then finally, for a fully diminished seventh chord, you need the root plus the circle, open circle on a 7, or just the root plus DIM7. That means fully diminished seventh chord. Last but not least, popular chord symbols can indicate that triads and chords or seventh chords are supposed to be inverted. How does a popular symbol tell the performer or musician that a chord should be inverted? Well, it kind of says right here in the gray heading of this bottom table. It says, a different bass note than the root can be shown or indicated by writing what note should occur in the bass after a slash. And musicians call this, to show inversions with pop symbols, they sometimes refer to it as slash notation. It doesn't mean that you're so frustrated and angry at the music that you just start slashing your homework paper. Let's say I have a C minor chord, but it's in first inversion, like this. How would I show that or indicate that with a pop symbol? Well, I use the pop symbol for the type of triad first, which is C minor, right? But to show that it's not in root position, I draw a slash, and then whatever the note that is on the bottom, I would put that note after the slash. And that indicates that there's something besides the root on the bottom of the chord. So really the correct symbol for this would be C minor slash E flat. It means a C minor triad, but an E flat of that chord, that's the one that's on the bottom. That's the note that's the lowest sounding chord. Okay? If I had, for instance, let's say I have a B major triad in second inversion. What is the pop symbol just for a B major triad, first of all? Use your chart if you need to. How do you indicate a major triad? Just the capital letter for the root of the chord. So the symbol for this triad would be B, but the B it's not on the bottom, it's not in root position. What note do I put after the slash? F sharp, that's right. It's a B triad with F sharp on the bottom. That's what B slash F sharp means. Does that make sense how you indicate with pop symbols, how you show that a chord is not in root position? It doesn't really tell it, well, it kind of indirectly can tell you. Because we know that this chord is in first inversion, and we know that this chord is in second inversion. Although the pop symbol doesn't really tell you that, it just tells you which triad member is on the bottom. By virtue of the pitch that's notated after the slash. After the slash. Okay? And that's called slash notation. I don't know if you guys pay, well, this would be before your time. Does anyone know the name of one of the guitarists of the Guns N' Roses band?
Axl
Okay, that's the singer.
Should.
One of their main guitarists, his name is Slash. Good. All right. So let's take a look at an example out of the book. And then what we'll do is we'll go through a few examples on the board, spelling and identifying. I think the one in the book is on page 46. Why? No, I don't have that up there anymore. Yeah, let's take a look at this. Example 310. This is kind of like what lead sheets or pages in a fake book. This is kind of what they look like. All you're given, you see all you're given is a melody. You see how that's all just one line of music in a treble clef? And then do you see the pop symbols that are notated above certain notes or certain measures of the melody? That tells you what the melody, what chord is supposed to harmonize the melody at that point. And you're supposed to stay and stick with, you're supposed to stick with a particular chord given by the pop symbol until the pop symbol changes. So that means this D7 chord here, which is what we know as a D major minor 7 chord, that's to harmonize and last through the whole measure, because it's not changed until we get to the next measure. That's how that works. So we stick with a particular chord as long as the music says until the music changes, or excuse me, until the chord or the pop symbol changes. Now look at this one here. What is F sharp M7 flat 5? Is that something that makes you want to carol? That's right. It's an F sharp half diminished 7 chord. That's all it is. Yeah, no puking needed, right? All right, so let's take a listen to how something like this might sound. And again, the performer has the option to, how do I say, improvise is the word I'm looking for. The performer has the ability to improvise. Just all that tells a performer is what chord is supposed to be sounded at that point. But they can voice the chord however they want. Okay, play it in any octave they want. So, for instance, you might have I'll go up an octave. And by the way, the piano is just one of many instruments that can work with this. What's maybe perhaps an even better instrument that'll work with something like this to realize the chords?
Guitar.
Yeah, guitar. Yeah, exactly. All right. Moving right along, we're going to do just a few examples on the board, and then I guess we'll be out of time. Let's let me give you a few of this. Let's, boy, I don't know if I wanted to, no, I guess I'll do it like this. Okay, let's spell that chord indicated by the pop symbol correctly, in the correct bass position. What is that calling for? Well, Yeah, it's calling for a major triad whose root is E, but just placed in first inversion with the G sharp on the bottom. Right, because before the slash, all I have is a capital letter, and that means that's the root, and that means a major triad. So an E major triad in root position would be this. All this says now with this after the slash means that the G sharp goes on the bottom. So my final answer could be something like that. And that would satisfy it. Okay. How about one more of these? Let's try this pop symbol. You need to spell the chord in the staff according to the requested type. Okay, what kind of seventh chord do I need?
It's in second inversion, it's a major seventh.
Okay, it's a major seventh chord, I would agree. Second inversion, not exactly, but we'll get to that. The part to the left of the slash tells me what I need, the notes I need. I need a G major, major seventh chord. And so I know that those notes now are G, B, D, and F sharp. That's a G major, major seventh. This just tells me the F sharp is on the bottom, right? And that makes it third inversion. Because the seventh of the chord is on the bottom. So I could notate it like this. But I guess the crucial thing is, just to the left of the slash, do you know what this symbol means, what kind of chord it's asking for, and do you know how to spell that chord correctly to get the right notes? That's the main thing. The note after the slash, that just tells you what's on the bottom, that just tells you the inversion. Okay. What about if we were to go through something like, what if I were to have a key signature? And this is the chord I want. G7 means a G what chord? The G whiz chord? Just G and a 7.
Major, minor.
Good, G major minor 7. If you need a piece of scratch paper or need to write it out on the staff somewhere else, that's fine. I'm going to put it in root position. I know that G major minor 7 is GBDF. And this just tells me I need F on the bottom. But, what kind of B does this chord technically require? Does it require a B flat?
Natural.
This requires B natural, but look what my key signature is going to make my B unless I do something to it. So really what I got to do is I got to do F on the bottom. Here's GBD, but if I'm not careful, this is G B flat G, and that's not what it's calling for. So when I have a key signature, sometimes I have to be careful to override the key signature. When it comes to pop symbols, you got to be really certain and sure what the notes you need are, and then make it, it's like, I never did watch this show, but back in Star Trek, the captain would always say, make it so. Do whatever you need, put any accidentals you need in there to make it the type of chord you need, despite the key signature, in spite of the key signature. And then maybe one more. Let's look at the same measure with the same key signature. C7 over E. C7 means a major minor seventh chord on C. So that's C, E, G, B flat. I know those are the notes for that exactly. Now be careful when I put it on the staff. Look, my B is already flat. That's good. But when I put this on the staff, what's the key signature going to do to my E? It's going to flat it, and I don't want E flat. I want E natural. So when I put it, oh, by the way, the E's on the bottom. So when I write it on the staff, I need to do this. Cancel out that flat of the key signature. But do you see how the B is flat the way it should be? Well, okay, this isn't super clear. If it came after this chord in the same measure, I would need to put this on there to cancel that natural out. But let's just pretend this was not here. There. Now, I technically don't need a flat on the piece because it's just a key signature, and I want to be flat. I want to be flat. It takes a little bit of thinking, just paying attention to the details and being sure of what you're trying to spell, what you intend to put on the staff. Make sure when you add chords, write chords on the staff, that they're as you intend to do, including any accidentals you may need to cancel out or override key signature. All right, so for next class, I think you've got a little bit in the workbook. I forget what page it is. Just a little bit in the workbook, and then I've got a handout for you to put in some chords based on pop symbols. So just a teeny bit in the workbook plus this handout, and that's for memory. So have a good weekend. Yeah, you too. Some of, you're missing, yes, some of the notes are wrong. This is A sharp.
Is it A sharp?
Yeah, see how it's a couple letter lines down instead of one letter lines?
Oh, it's a treble clef.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, okay, that helps it, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Is it